the importance and the difference in training and how we onboard based on whether we're onboarding a finder, a minder, or a grinder. Any suggestions or contributions there?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to echo what Jamie was saying to begin with. Every staff member that comes on board, I give them a what's called a chairman's welcome, and in there it itemizes what we expect of them, and right up on the top is they need to return their emails and phone calls on the same day they receive the email, and at the very latest the next morning, because often you might be in a meeting and you can't do that day, but it's the first thing you do the next morning. And if you can't get back to the client the next morning, you've got to get somebody else to call the client to let the client know that you'll get back to them, later in the day. And that's the first thing I write, I give to them. That's part of the chairman's welcome, and it's a sackable offence if they don't do it. So I set the bar really, really high. And the reason for that is that you can imagine if you had 160 people and they took their time to respond to the clients. I mean, it's easy if you have one staff and the staff sitting right next to you and you're making sure that they're doing it. But when you've got 160 and they're right across Australia, it's near impossible to manage 160 if they don't reply instantly. And we are in a business of service. And the thing that differentiates your firm from the one down the road is your responsiveness. And if you can just put yourself in the client's shoes, if you were dealing with two businesses and one responded to you quickly and the other one just didn't respond to you, the body language they give you is that they don't care. They've got other more important things to do. And you're very low on their priority list. Whereas the one that responds to you very quickly tells you that you're very important to them and you're really high on their priority list. So that the message that we give, now, the owners of the businesses can do that instinctively and they understand that, but it's the staff that don't particularly understand that, because a lot of the staff are input focused and they're not output focused, meaning they're focused on, if they're grinders, they're focused on doing the work and getting the work out. They're not particularly focused on the client, right? And then other staff are more input focused, meaning it's about working hard and working fast, but they may not necessarily produce anything. So just because you're busy doesn't mean that you're productive. And it's a bit like saying, it's a bit like the salesman who works 7 days a week but doesn't sell anything. It is about the output. And so I put that right out there, right up there, because often the staff that come on board don't realize that we're here for one thing, and that's to service the clients. So that's really important. The second thing then, in the first 3 months, you've got to watch out for is that it depends on whether the person that you've recruited is an experienced person or that person is a graduate. If it's an experienced person, then in the first 3 months, whatever they do in the first 3 months is going to be like that for the next 3 years or 30 years. Okay, that's my experience. So that's for experienced staff. Now, if they're inexperienced, like graduates, then you want to see a trend. They're learning something new, that they're sort of learning, they're improving every day. You need to see that trend. They're improving, they're learning, they're improving, and they're getting better every day. And if they're not improving every day, then there's something wrong. So just go back to the experienced person. If that person is very slow, for example, so in our industry, we can't have staff that's very slow, because we charge our time out to the clients. And if someone takes 2 hours to do something instead of 1 hour, then whatever you're paying them just doubled. It's like it's costing you twice as much, because they're twice as slow to produce output, because it's all about productivity and output. And they shouldn't be working in our industry. They should be working in maybe in commerce, or they should be working in the public service. They're not suited to our industry. And often we think that we can just go out there and hire accountants, but they're accountants, and then there are accountants, and they're different types to suit different industries. And in our industry, it's about speed, getting through the work and getting production out the door. So it's really important that in that first 3 months, if that person is experienced and they're very, very slow, they're not going to change. So it's better to move them on, because you're going to lose 3 months of getting somebody else in there and training them up. So if you don't move that person on quickly, then in 3 months' time, you've got to start again. It may take you another month to find another person. And that's 4 months, and you've lost 4 months of training the right person. So move them on very quickly. And that's extremely important. Now, just to break it up between finders, minders, and grinders. Now, in what you should do in that first 3 months, depending on obviously how big you are, because it changes if you're a large firm compared to a small firm. And I always say that you've got to micro train so that you don't have to micromanage them later on. If you put the time and effort into training them, and often some accountants see that as a waste of time. They see it as I'm spending time with them, I've got to write the time off. It's just a waste of time. Whereas I see it as a balance sheet investment. If you invest a balance sheet investment with these people, but I'm saying this on the presumption that these are competent people, not you found the right competent person, not an incompetent person, which you've got to let go. Then you've got to micro train up front so that you don't have to micromanage them later on, because really good output people don't like to be micromanaged. They know how to they do the work. They're very productive and they want to get on with it. They need some direction as to what they should do, and they just want you to let them get on with the job, and you measure them by their productivity. Micro train them up front so you don't have to micromanage them later on. Now, breaking them up into grinders, minders, and finders. So obviously, if you're a small firm and you're training a grinder, then you've got to get in there and teach them the technique, because it's about technique. Someone could take an extra 30%, 40%, 50% longer to do something based on their technique. So as an experienced accountant, you can go the long way to get a result, or you can take 2 or 3 steps and get there very quickly. And it's just the experience that you have in getting to the point very quickly, and you need to pass that on to them. They don't know that. They just bring their baggage with them from the previous firm that they've worked with, and often you've got to get that out of them, get that out of them. And if they're a minder and finder, then it's a different technique to train them, because it's more about their interpersonal skills. So you have to work with the senior client managers on how to communicate with the clients. And I'm not talking about speaking English. I'm talking about being able to communicate to the clients at their level. And often when you're getting in front of clients, they're at different levels of knowledge, and you can with someone that's financially literate, you can use terms like, can I have a list of your debtors and can I have a list of your creditors? But if you're talking to a tradesman who doesn't understand the financial language, then you've got to use language like, can I have a list of the people that owe you money, or a list of the people that you owe money to. And if you can communicate and connect with them at their level, you're at a much at a heightened level of connection with your clients. And as I said, our business is about people and connecting, communicating with people. And if you can't communicate, then you're not going to be suited for a senior client manager. So the training for a senior client manager is different to a senior production manager. So the senior client manager, you're looking for that connection with the clients, that ability to have rapport, instant rapport, the likability factor. People, you have to be a likable kind of a person, and the people person. That's right at the top. And the things you look for are different for the different roles in this deep and narrow team that we recommend. And how you approach it depends on that, and also it depends on how large your business is. Now, if you're small, you've got to do that. It's hands-on training from yourself. But if you've got a large organization, then your senior production manager should be doing all the doing the training for the grinders under his or her team. And then the senior client manager should be doing the training to the assistant client manager for the communication skills and their interpersonal skills.
Yeah.
So it just depends on those categories. But at the end of the day, you've got to look for, if it's an experienced person, first 3 months, whatever they're like that first 3 months, they're going to be like that for the next 3 years or 30 years if they stay there. And then if it's a graduate, you want to see an improvement every day, and the trend line's going upwards, and you need to see that. Otherwise, it's best to move them on.
I think Brenton's dropped out there, Ed, but
all right, okay.
You might be back again, but look, I'm just going to add a couple of quick things. Is particularly with the grinders, the way that you see that they improve is through their review points. So what you never want to do is just say, oh, it's quicker to do it myself as much as humanly possible. And I often get this question, well, how do I know they're improving? Well, you'll only know if they're improving if you do review points, and then over time their review points become less and less and less. And I remember my experience when I started as an accountant, and there was a couple of really good firms that I worked for, and I knew that I was progressing because the review points got less. But you're not going to know that. You're not going to know that review points will be less if you continually, oh, it's quicker if I just do it myself. I'll fix their mistake. Don't fix their mistakes. Let them fix their own mistakes. So I'd only add that. And then what Ed said about the finders is I've trained senior client managers and trained assistant client managers, and I'll always double back the meetings with the clients so that they can see my interpersonal skills. They can see how I handle a particular client, whether it's a doctor or whether it's a tradie, and even phone calls. A lot of the times when I'm training a client manager, I will chime them in to the phone calls. And they'll mimic you and they'll watch you, but you've already hired them for that likability factor and the people skills that Ed said. Then you just need to fine tune and tweak their skills so that they can do their roles. So